Hello everybody and welcome to this very special webinar, Your Business Continuity Plan, brought to you today by KMA Accountants and presented to you today by Kim Marler. My name is Debbie Spooner and I'm going to be supporting Kim today, overseeing this webinar, ensuring that you can all see the visuals as we run through this session today and that you're able to hear all of the amazing content that Kim is sharing. This webinar will take us up to 1:30. It is also being recorded, so if for any reason you're not able to stay with us for the duration of the session, that's fine. We will ensure that you do get a copy of the recording to you. For those of you who have never used a GoToWebinar session before, let's just run through a little bit of housekeeping so that you can all get involved and get the best out of this session. The top right hand side, there is a little orange arrow that will enable you to expand and collapse your control panel. You will all be on mute for the duration of this session, so we do encourage you to ask questions so that we can respond back to that. We've got a lot of people here today, so we want to make sure that you're all covered and you're all heard just simply by typing in questions in that question box there. Anybody who is keen to have a handout or the workbook from this, then do drop that in the questions and also in the exit feedback at the end of this session today, so that Kim and the team at KMA can get that out to you. So before we progress, can you just check, just by confirming, if some of you can just pop in that little questions panel, that you're all able to hear and see okay? Wonderful, thank you. Look at you all, you're all experts now. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So thank you all very much just for confirming that with us. So without further ado, let me hand over to you to today's presenter, Kim Marler, owner and founder and MD of KMA Accountancy. She'll be guiding you through this very important webinar today. So thank you, Kim, over to you.
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out to join us today. It is unprecedented times that we find ourselves in, and it's also extremely worrying for every business owner and obviously collectively everyone here on this webinar. Just a matter of a few weeks ago, we were getting on with our lives. Then over the last couple of weeks, we've found that we've slowly but surely gone from normality, restaurants, bars, leisure facilities, shops, being able to go about our normal lives. And suddenly we've all been thrown into this lockdown situation where, even some of us on this webinar, we've had our businesses turned upside down because we can't either trade or we can't trade in the normal way. And who would have envisaged that this would have happened, as we approach the end of 2019. We want you to know that we're here to help. We're here for you and give whatever support you need, albeit remotely right now, unfortunately, but we are here to help support you through these difficult times. As you know, our core values are all about helping, supporting and partnering with you, and our core purpose is to change the lives of our clients and their families for the better by making more money and having more time, less stress, and living the life they want. And that's certainly never been more prevalent than right now. So without further ado, let's kind of jump straight into the webinar and help you to navigate through these difficult times over the next few weeks and possibly months. So with this core purpose in mind, we're here to share with you the practical things that you can do to mitigate the impact of the current COVID-19 pandemic on your business and your family. So before we kick off properly, I just wanted to give you a thought for the day from JFK. So when written in Chinese, there are two words here, way and J, and one represents danger and the other opportunity. And regardless of the fact that JFK was not entirely correct in his translation, this translation is now widely spread and funnily enough even used by some native Chinese speakers. So regardless of what we're faced with now, this is most certainly a crisis, and most of us, if not all of us, have never ever been in anything remotely like this. At the same time though, it is a time of real opportunity, okay? And I don't want you to kind of lose focus of that. If you listen to the news and the media, it's all doom and gloom, and I think we need to kind of just hunker down and just think seriously about the fact that we need to remain positive, and there is real opportunity. So there's opportunity for you to take leadership in helping your team at this time of greatest need. Also to be proactive in communicating with your clients, customers, and also to make a plan for a more sustainable and resilient business, or in the worst case scenario, to exit your business if that's what you decide needs to happen, with the minimum negative impact on you and your family. Okay, so the agenda. So please do kind of, submit your questions in the chat panels, as Debbie's mentioned, as we go along. As Debbie's already said, we will send out, a recording of this, and obviously the guides and everything at the end afterwards. So what we're going to cover here is how the right mindsets are essential to your success and obviously survival as well. It's important to take a step back and look at what you can do differently to ensure that your business is in the best possible business, and that it's often in times of crisis that your greatest breakthroughs are achieved by thinking differently about your business. Now, I appreciate that may not necessarily kind of come to mind straight away, but trust me, it is true. We're going to look at building a plan, outline the support that's available, and then I'll talk to you about the next steps and how we can help. And finally, we'll answer any questions that you may have. Okay. Put us all in the right frame of mind, I wanted to share with you the most powerful business model I've ever seen, and it's called Orbed, and it will all become obvious in a moment. In times of crisis, we have two choices about how we can respond. We can act above the line or below the line, okay? Below the line actions would go something like this: blame someone else for bringing the virus into the country, make excuses why there's nothing that we can do about it, and go into denial that there's even an issue, and in doing so put ourselves, our team, our family and our businesses at great risk. Or we can act above the line. We can take ownership that there is something we can do, and we must do something to protect ourselves and our businesses. We can recognise that we're accountable to our team and our clients and customers at their greatest time of need, and take responsibility for protecting ourselves, our team, our customers and our business from these difficult times. The fundamental mindset here is that we do have a choice, and we mustn't take on this victim mindset in times like these. It's okay to have thoughts below the line. They're what we often think of as childlike. Speaking from the you, being childlike, out of control. It's not my job. Not using your initiative. And it is natural when we're all worried about things that will happen. But we must act in a positive way above the line mindset, so that we lead and lead by example. So we've got to show that we do have choices, and we must make them. We have to be adult-like and take control in these worrying times. So it's your choice whether you're a victor or a victim, but only above the line mentality will help you to thrive and come out of this crisis, in the best possible shape. The next mindset I want to talk to you about is called the be, do, have principle. So, as well as acting above the line, we should consider who we need to be in times like this. In other words, what's our personal brand and our identity? So, if we are not careful, we can act like this. So we can say, when I have got through these pressing client matters, I'll be able to do the things like make a plan to get through this and talk to my team about what all of this means for them, so that I can be a great leader of my business and my team. Now, a far better mindset is to do it the other way around. In order to be a great leader of my business, I need to do things like update my plan and get proactive with my team and my customers during this crisis. Then I will have the most successful business that I can have in these difficult times. So as we can see on the left-hand side of the slide, we've got, B is all about defining and creating the preferred way, lining with your goals. Do is all about propelling yourself and doing the right action. And then ultimately, you're going to have those results that you really want. And as in the words of Zig Ziglar, you have to be before you can do, and do before you can have. Okay, moving on to the next mindset. This is from Sir Richard Branson, and it serves as a great reminder as to where we need to place most of our energy right now. So, as you can see, we need to think about us as the business owner. We need to look after us, and first and foremost, as the owner, and of course our family. And then we need to think about our team, if we have one. And I appreciate that not everybody on the webinar today does. From there, we need to look after our customers. And then, the customers will effectively look after the business. So what we find as owners is that all of our energy is split between the team, the customers, and the business itself, with very little time to look after ourselves. Now, Richard Branson, the quote here on the left, clients don't come first, employees come first, because if you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. So Sir Richard Branson gives us a very useful model to follow here. If we have a team, make sure as the owner that you're doing whatever you can to look after them. So by looking after your team, they will be well equipped to look after your customers. For example, you might want to kind of pivot your sales plan to cope with these challenging times. And you may want to come up with new products or services, and the team can then pass on this message to your existing customers. If you pivot your sales message and your team look after that, then ultimately you'll look after your existing customers, and you'll get new customers as well coming into the business. And so ultimately that will all then follow round, and ultimately the business then will look after you as the owner. I appreciate that this may seem a little bit oversimplified, and some of you, as I say on the webinar, won't have a team. The point here is that it all starts with you, the owner. If you act above the line, remember who you need to be and make a plan now. It should start with your team, as we say, and then they'll look after the customers so you don't get overwhelmed. If you don't have a team, then the plan needs to start with you and your customers, who will effectively then look after your business. We want to help you to build this plan as the business owner. So, knowing that the Sir Richard Branson model starts with you as the business owner, let's talk about what you can do to improve your resilience right now. Your well-being is critical. Remember, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help anybody else. So make sure you stay healthy as much as you possibly can. Get as much sleep as you can and keep exercising. I mean, luckily, since the lockdown, the weather's not been too bad, so we can all get out. Definitely, look out for any support that you may need. I know some people right now, anxiety levels are quite high. So if there is support needed, then definitely reach out and get that. And obviously, look after your family members. Great time to kind of speak to them right now. So select your information sources carefully. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there, in the media. There's a lot of misrepresentation. Try to minimize the time that you spend on social media about the pandemic. Stay calm, stay connected with your family and friends, and above all, stay positive. Yeah, it's not great. We see the daily figures of people effectively reporting cases and sadly the deaths, but we have to kind of put that into context. And I think sometimes what we probably don't know, we live in a world where there is so much social media, and it is a fact anyway, whether we like it or not, that every year flu of some type kills somewhere between a third and over 500,000 people worldwide. So yes, it's not great, but we have to kind of put it into context. We will get through this and we will come out the other side. So try to remain positive. So focus on the needs of your family, their health and their well-being. Make a plan for how they can be supported, especially if you have to go into isolation or, heaven forbid, out of the house into hospital. It's one thing that you can do clearly right now is to look at your finances. So it's quite an empowering thing to do is look at your personal budget. You'd be amazed at how many people just don't keep track of this. It doesn't need to be complex. It could be as simple as just totaling your expenditure for the last few months to identify what your monthly personal costs are, and this will help to alleviate some anxiety. From there, you can identify, where savings need to be made. I mean, ultimately, in some respects, it's a little bit easier right now because we're in lockdown. So, we can't go out and have a coffee. We can't go on holidays. We can't go out to restaurants, etc. But obviously, as we get through this, we will go back to that world. So identify, where your cash flow needs to be right now, what savings you can make in the short term to just give you a bit of a cushion. And obviously, those savings that you make will just take the pressure off the business right now. Now, don't cut costs necessarily, just for the sake of it. Obviously, it wouldn't be a good idea to cut, costs for your essential utilities. Everyone needs a really strong and reliable internet connection right now, especially if you're working from home. Likewise, you can think about your personal asset planning and planning, for your family. So personal insurances, life, income protection, wills and memorandum of wishes, and make sure all of those are up to date. And again, it's probably a good time to kind of think about that for your family. Make sure your appropriate family members have powers of attorney in place. There are different kinds of power of attorney to think about here. If you're over 18, have the mental ability to make financial, property, medical decisions, you can arrange for someone else to make those decisions in the future. So you've got a property and financial affairs lasting power of attorney. And then the other one is concerned with medical care, and that is the personal welfare lasting power of attorney. They're only used when you're unable to make your own decisions. This was brought home to me recently because I was putting these in place, funnily enough, at the end of last year for my parents. I hope I don't need it, but obviously it's there should I. So you can apply online for those powers of attorney. You can find them at gov.uk. If you can't find it, give me a shout and I'll put you in the right direction. Or you can contact the Office of Public Guardian. So now it's a good time to just review everything, ensure you've got these things in place, because life goes at 100 miles an hour. We'll get through this and then we'll forget about it until potentially it's too late. So consider all of this stuff and make sure you've got it in place should you ever need it, and it will just make things a lot easier for your family. So moving on, once you've got yourself in order and your family, it's then time to look at the resilience of your team members. If you've got a team, don't underestimate that your team members are going to be really worried about their job security. It's probably not helpful at times that the government stated that there will be lots of job losses during this time. Now, obviously, we've seen the measures that they've put into place, but they can't help everybody. So be open with your team. Share relevant parts of your plan with them, and be honest about the potential impact of this pandemic and what it will effectively or could do to your business. If you are as we go through this, it becomes apparent that you won't be able to, especially if you've furloughed your team and you're not able to kind of give them a job at the end of it, then make sure that you obtain legal and HR advice on this, and look at the best ways of restructuring and redundancy processes. It's likely that people, we will remain in some form of lockdown for the foreseeable future. Obviously, we're all dependent on Boris, aren't we, at the moment? Coming out of hospital before we get to find out how well these measures are happening. But realistically, we're only now seeing Wuhan come out slowly. So potentially the government has put its measures in place. Its funding measures for 3 months. So obviously they were put in place from the beginning of March. So it's April, May. So potentially that's at this stage, that's how long we could be in the current situation. So no one really knows. So decide what additional resources you need to provide your team, if you haven't already. Consider how you can best utilize technology to maintain team communication. This could be things like, obviously, phone calls. It could be using apps like Slack or House Party. Apparently you can chat online. My daughter's found this one really useful to keep in touch with her school friends. You can do weekly Zoom, Skype, GoToMeeting calls and webinars. We've used Zoom technology with some of our clients who are based around the UK for a number of years now, but a lot of businesses have never used this technology, and actually who knows, but it will be a very different landscape as we come out of this, and maybe that's for the better. Obviously, a big thing is the mental health and well-being which will be massive as we go through this pandemic. You know, I was listening to HR lawyer last night talking about the whole anxiety, OCD, you know, people living on their own and feeling isolated. So it is important to try as much as possible to consider that team cohesion, and obviously, you know, the whole kind of family cohesion too. It's hard to have team camaraderie when you're not all in one office. So it is important to keep in touch. And as we've said, you know, maybe having a weekly webinar. You know, I've put this out on our WhatsApp group, and obviously I'll be putting it out via emails and stuff. We're going to have a virtual drinks session on a Friday. It's actually going to be obviously Thursday this week because of Easter. But you know, we're going to encourage all of our clients and, you know, business owners. So please feel free to come along and, you know, invite other business owners that you know. Bring your tea, coffee, or beer, or a glass of wine, or whatever if you want something stronger. And you know, we're going to do it ultimately because as a business owner, and especially if you don't have staff, it's very lonely. So we can talk, you know, we can have a question and answer session, and just all pull together to get through this. So make sure you've got your COVID-19 policies in place to keep your team safe, and let them know what support's available, and we'll cover the government support, you know, in more detail later. So moving on to your clients and customers, the support you offer your clients and customers now will impact the support that they give to you in the future. You know, everybody's you know, anxious and worried, and customers need to be reassured that we're still operating and that you're taking specific measures to mitigate the exposure to the virus if you need to do anything face to face. You know, for example, for us, you know, if clients need to drop off records, what we've agreed to do is a Domino's drop. You may have heard this saying. Domino's Pizza, for example, when they're dropping off pizzas to you know, vulnerable people, is they're literally, you know, putting it on the doorstep, ringing the doorbell, stepping back, you know, 3 or 4 meters, waiting for the pizza to be taken in, and then obviously leaving. And we're doing a similar thing to, again, to make sure our clients are safe. So just kind of, you know, have a think about that. Also, you know, your policy needs to cover the steps your business is taking to protect your customers. Share this information with them to offer reassurance that you're taking every practical step to reduce the risks and protect your customers and your team. You can review your, you know, terms of trade, and I definitely recommend that, and update them to reflect these changing practices. You know, you may need to look at your pricing, you know, deposits and stuff within those. You know, they may need flexing slightly, or you may need to just be very, very tight on them right now. So share these updated terms of trade with your customers, highlighting key areas. In particular, you know, review your payment terms and delivery terms. And, you know, you've got to remember that, you know, you're not a charity as a business. And so also enforce your terms of trade as well. Don't let customers avoid paying you. If it's at all possible, as, you know, this could have a material impact on you and the sustainability of your business. So just as we mentioned earlier, you know, it's really important that you put the oxygen mask on you first. It's essential that you have the sufficient cash coming into your business from your customers. Cash is the oxygen that your business needs to survive. And we'll talk more about cash flow management shortly, as there's always things that you can do. To your suppliers, you know, it's a good time to talk to them. So when you can, you know, negotiate new payment terms with your suppliers. If you can pay up front, ask for a prompt payment discount. If you don't have the sufficient cash to pay up front, well, ask to pay over a longer period of time. You know, if you need to buy stock, you may want, you know, to just pay the supplier once you've sold the stock. Just remember right now, if you don't ask, you know, you don't get. purchasing policies, discuss your supplier's supply chain and the measures that they're taking to continue supply. Ask about their contingency plans for what may happen if deliveries can't be made or supplies can't be obtained. Because obviously if it's critical for you to do a job, but you can't get the stock, then you're going to struggle to get that job finished and ultimately get paid. So consider whether you need additional stock while it's available. If it's coming in from, places like India and China, it will have been delayed or will be delayed. And so you need to kind of factor that into your plans. It may be that you can reduce your current minimum, reordering levels with your suppliers so that you're not holding too much stock and having too much cash tied up. You need to perhaps look at your supplier contracts with regards to returning stock, whether you can return excess stock that isn't selling or you don't need right now. If you can't return it, then you may have to consider, as we come out of this, perhaps discounting slow-moving stock to get it turning cash over for you, and obviously introduce that into the business. Contracts. Review all the contracts that you have with suppliers. That there may be a clause which will allow you to cancel orders or change the terms during this crisis period. If you can't meet the terms of that contract, obviously you're going to have to seek legal advice and negotiate. Remember, you can negotiate on all sorts of contracts, premises, rent, vehicles, equipment. You may be able to negotiate significant terms, extending them, the terms of the contract. And, as we've said, your current cash flow and the ability to meet obligations may be significantly impacted. So, some of these key providers will be prepared to renegotiate. We are all in this together, don't forget. So let's look at the cash conversion cycle now, and how you get cash in quicker. One of the most important ways to improve your business is to shorten your cash conversion cycles. In other words, to get your cash in quicker. So let's have a look at a real example. Okay, I'm going to talk about a wholesaler, but it could equally be a builder, a web design company, or anyone who gives credit to their customers. So you buy your stock in, and on average, you have to pay your supplier 45 days after buying the stock. The stock doesn't sell the moment it comes in. Some does, and some takes longer. But on average, that stock is held for 60 days before you sell it to your customers. So when you've sold it, as a wholesaler, you're going to give credit. So you're providing credit, and some customers will pay you on time, some won't, but on average, that's about 60 days. So now we can calculate the cash conversion cycles. So it's 60 days average stock holding, plus 60 days to get paid by your customers, less 45 days credit provided by the suppliers. So that equals 75 days to convert your inputs to cash. In difficult times as this, you need to ensure you have a plan in place to shorten this conversion cycle. This is a process we would recommend you do as part of your business continuity. So, you can use the numbers from your most recent management accounts or from Xero if you're on software, or we can help you work out the numbers and calculate your cash conversion cycle. From there, we can discuss with you how you can shorten this cycle and free up more cash. So in this example, let's say your debtors are 50,000 and your turnover is £500,000 per annum. So a 10-day reduction in your cash conversion cycle would be worth 13,700 to you. Now, that's cash you could really do with right now. And I'm sure as we move through this situation, it will become even more important so that we can, pay our staff, our suppliers as well. So part of completing your business continuity plan is work on how you can free up as much cash flow as possible using this model. Okay, another area that we need to focus on is what the Americans call the business 101 cycle in these difficult times. As we often tell you, there's a massive difference between cash and profit. Profit's what you pay tax on. Cash is the oxygen that your business needs to survive. So what is so important here is that as well as improving your conversion cycle, we need to make plans to maximise your profit and at the same time finance your business correctly. Let's walk through this model. Excuse me. Starting at the top, as an owner, you introduce cash into the business and buy assets. You may have borrowed cash to purchase assets like buildings, plant and machinery, or other assets, and those assets are then used to generate profit. So we move down around the circle. How you increase profit is to improve your revenue and sales, make sales. Now, I appreciate that, at the moment, it's going to be very difficult in these challenging times, but it is still possible to make sales. I appreciate that some businesses have had to shut down, and so you can't have a proper face-to-face, and obviously some services are very difficult to provide. But can you pivot your business? Can you think about doing something differently? For example, we've seen people selling online yoga courses. Joe Wicks has become a bit of a hero in this arena. We've seen restaurants that can't open pivoting their business by ultimately delivering, and making takeaways. I've heard of online, physios who would normally treat people, face to face, and with the whole social distancing, that's really difficult right now. So I've seen, online physio appointments where they're delivering their appointment over Zoom, giving them exercises to do, and generally still, effectively selling. Whilst there are a lot of businesses out there that are struggling, it's also a time to remember that people still have money. There are a lot of people who have got quite a bit of reserves of cash. They're sat at home, they've got nothing else to do except go on social media. They may have been furloughed. But now's a good time to think, can you do something that they want, virtually? So, pivoting that sales strategy and doing what you can to avoid losing existing customers. At the same time, you ought to also be looking at how you can improve your margins via efficiency gains, perhaps better purchasing, reduction in errors, wastage. Now's a good time to look at your business model. How do you deliver your product or service? And not just simply discounting to get more sales in when we get through this. You can look at discontinuing products or services that have a poor margin, maybe introducing new products and services. And once you've derived your profit, you need to turn that into cash. Profitable businesses can and do go broke at times like this. You need to be looking at how you can maximise your cash flow using strategies to get paid quicker. And next week, I'm going to run a webinar on just that thing, getting paid. So you need to reduce your stock, work in progress, negotiate better payment terms with your suppliers. Now is not the time to be slow or lenient on debt collection. We need to keep the money spinning around the economy, especially as we come out of this. And likewise, you need to be careful about reordering stock. Can you operate with less stock, or are you likely to be in short supply? Other areas to help improve your cash flow are, getting better terms with your banks and lenders. For example, you could go on to interest only. We've seen that on mortgage payments or loans, possibly getting payment holidays. Do check though that it's not going to affect your credit history, and I'll cover finance shortly. Likewise, there are many tax concessions that are available, so you want to make sure that you do access those, and we'll come to that in a moment. So let's look about, now I've talked about the cash conversion cycle, let's look at how we can grow our business. Might seem a strange thing to talk about right now with the situation we're in, but it's a good time to now focus on your business model and how you take advantage of the situation as we come out of the pandemic, and we will do. And I think lots of businesses have gone into massive panic mode and worrying about cash and how they're going to survive and cutting everything and running around rabbit in headlights. Now is a really good time to go and put your business continuity plan in place, work through it, remain calm, positive, and think about how can I change my business slightly so that when we come out of this, I'm in a really good position to go after either launch a new product or service, or because of the way you've behaved through this, ultimately, take those business owners that, spend elsewhere, or those customers, they'll see you and come and spend their money with you. So, as we said, let's look at the 7 ways to grow your business. So, first way, as it says, increase client retention rate. What can you do to make a difference, to stand out, to delight your customers right now? It may just be helping them right now, reaching out, telling them that you're still here. I'm stunned as I walk down the local high street by the number of shops that have, they've had to close, I get that, but they've just put a note that says we're closed until further notice. They've not said, well, we're going to now sell, for example, there's a bra shop and it just says we're closed. Now they've got a database of your size. So they could have put a notice on that door that said, because we've got your data, if you need anything, just give us a call and we'll send it out to you. People are not going to not spend on what they see as value or essential items. We're all going out food shopping because we need to. So, what can you do right now to get to, to delight your customers and to stay connected? Lead generation. Now is a really good time. You should be looking at avenues to attract potential new customers. As I say, people are spending, increase your marketing costs, using cost-effective methods. There's obviously social media, just look at great ways to attract new businesses. There are customers who have money, as we've said, so don't be afraid. Obviously be empathetic, think about it, but people do need to buy in the current climate. For example, if your business has been affected and you've had to close and all go home, you may have a need for a telephone answering service, because no one, you can't, perhaps you can't, divert your phone to a member of your team. You've had to furlough them and they can't work. So you still need the phone answered. You don't want to miss customers, if they're calling you. Prospect conversion, make sure you're making it easy for people to buy from you, without giving your value product away for free. But, can you do delivery? Can you do online ordering? What can you do right now? Transaction value. Can you, again, appreciate it might be a little bit difficult in the current right now, but as we move through this, You know, can you encourage your customers to buy more from you? Maybe give them an offer. You know, I know hotels are doing this right now to try and get bookings for later on. You know, is there something that you can do at the moment to try and get that transaction value up later? Transaction frequency. What can you do to encourage your customers to come back more regularly? You know, locking in their next purchase, meeting at the end of the current transaction, or at least asking for, you know, referrals to new customers. Obviously, it's a good idea to look at, you know, perhaps reducing your cost of sales. Can you preserve your current margin? Can you reduce errors and rework? You know, get a better price from your suppliers. Be more efficient. You know, to try and increase your margins. Can you reduce your overheads? You know, are there any costs that you can, you know, remove from your business? Obviously, we've had bestowed upon us that we can't, you know, entertain, we can't travel. So therefore, at the moment, you know, vehicle costs are a lot lower. Are there any software that you've got in your business, you know, that you never actually use? Now's a good time to look at those kind of needless costs or costs that you've just incurred that you've perhaps forgotten about. And, you know, it is good practice to look at these things regularly. You know, and right now you don't want to kind of cut, you know, all of your costs just for the sake of it. But you can put yourself in a much stronger position to fly at the end of this and take advantage from those business owners who have just closed their business down for months and panicked. You know, don't let that be you. Let's make a plan and let's get through this together. So let's look at, you know, business banking assistance. So one of the highest overheads in a business tends to be interest costs to, you know, to banks, lenders, financiers. You know, it can and often is a massive drain on the business, especially at a time like this. So let's have a look at what we could do. Well, clearly right now we could look at increasing, you know, overdraft facilities just to give us a bit of breathing space. We can also look to, as we've already said, extend that trade credit, talk to your suppliers and agree extended terms. Assets, you know, you may have assets that you've purchased in your business that actually you could refinance to help that cash flow. We've already said, you know, if you've got, you know, you may want to look at loan repayment holidays or, you know, mortgage repayment holidays, defer those repayments, you know, pay interest only, or possibly, you know, as the next one says, extension of term lending periods. You know, will the lender allow you to extend that that loan? Obviously, there may be the ability to get some, you know, short-term financing in the form of a loan or possibly mortgage, or possibly look at, you know, business credit card options. Now, part of your business continuity plan should be a discussion with your bank about how they can help you. And obviously, you know, we can kind of put you in touch and talk to you about the best way to kind of go about this. You know, you may be able to use cashback on credit cards. And now I'm not sort of saying for 1 minute that I'm recommending you go out and take loans or credit cards, but you do have to remember that cash is king. And if you've got a business that was basically healthy before all of this coronavirus pandemic, and actually, you know, you've just lost sales as a result of it, you know, for example, hairdressers, event hire companies, restaurants, coffee shops, gyms that have had to close. Suddenly they've got no cash coming in, or very little. Cash is king, and if you want to survive and get through this period now, then you're going to have to look at what help and what options are available to you. And obviously, there are some options which we'll look at in a moment, but I definitely recommend that you get your marketing plan ready to go, so that you can thrive at the end of this. So let's look at insurance policies, an area that everyone likes to look at, not. Okay, so it's really important that you do kind of review, this area. You've got to make sure that you have got support. We've talked about this already. HR advice on furloughing employees, for example. It's a good idea to speak to your insurance providers, because obviously we've all had to shut our offices, and we probably ought to notify them just in case there is any break-ins and thefts. Clearly everyone knows that we've all got to work from home, but insurance companies are not the most helpful, are they? So also, what sort of statutory liability have you got towards your customers and your employees? If you are still continuing to deliver a service, are you covered? Again, it's a good time to actually just make sure that you have quickly spoken to your insurance. Whilst no one wants to kind of speculate about what might happen and the negatives of losing someone, every business really needs to have a look at key person insurance and shareholder director. The worst thing in the world right now would be to have a battle to raise finances to buy out a family member because you've lost a key person in your business. Now, I have known this to happen, to a colleague's, a fellow accountant, to a member of his. Luckily, it's not frequent, but it does happen. So it's one of those. It's a good time to put all of this into your continuity plan. It's important to check, and as I say, we can give you some contact details of people to talk to, insurance companies and brokers, if that's of interest to you. Just let me know. Okay, the slide everyone's been waiting for, I'm sure. The government support. Now, hopefully, you've already had a lot of information from us on this. I mean, obviously, we've got the WhatsApp group where we're continually updating and putting stuff on the Facebook group, running, webinars for you. We're going to have that weekly webinar now, where we can answer questions on anything. Try to anyway. And obviously the emails, and you'll all have had the business survival toolkit from us. Now, just getting that redesigned up again, because obviously the changes over the weekend. So if anyone wants an updated copy, then please let me know and we'll ping one out to you. So what have the government done for us? There's a number of measures. Unfortunately, they don't cover everybody off. It is very difficult to make sure you cover 100%. So the first measure that most people are probably aware about now is that the VAT payment for the quarter falling within April, May and June has been deferred. If you want to defer it, you don't have to. You can still pay your VAT if you wish. But obviously, what we're advising clients to do is, if they have got worries over cash flow, then it's a good idea to defer that the VAT payment. So it is a deferment. It still has to be paid. You do have to submit your VAT return. If you want to take advantage of that, you have to still pay it by the end of the tax year. But you must cancel your direct debit, otherwise HMRC will take it. As I say, you've got to make sure you you do file your return on time. There has been an increase in working tax credits and universal credit. This, until the announcement on the self-employed, was the only option for people struggling. Working tax credits are going to be increased to £3,040 a year. Universal credit allowance is increased by £1,000 for the next year. So if you're self-employed, you can now access universal credit at a rate to statutory sick pay for employees. So if you are employed, there has been changes to the statutory sick pay for the coronavirus illness. So statutory sick pay is now available from day one for those who are following the advice to stay at home and can't work because they've exhibited symptoms, so they are eligible for that statutory sick pay. Now, there is also the coronavirus job retention scheme for furloughed workers. So basically, this allows UK employers to access financial support to continue paying part of their employees' salaries where they would otherwise have been made redundant because of the coronavirus crisis. So all UK businesses are eligible for the payment of 80% of furloughed employee wage costs up to £2,500 a month. Employers have got to designate the affected employees as furlough workers and have a conversation. And then obviously at some point, we believe from the end of April, submit that information to HMRC. So employers can choose whether they want to top this up to 100%, and they don't have to. And the payments can be backdated to March the 1st if your business had already stopped trading at that point. You know, obviously some restaurants had already made people redundant, and the idea behind this is, rather than mass redundancies, to effectively put people on, leave them on the payroll, but furlough them. Now, the important thing to point out here is if you have an employee who is furloughed, they cannot do any work for you. They are not allowed to do any services or income generating work. The only thing they can do is training. Okay. Coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. Now, you may have heard of the press. There's been a lot of bad press on this because, you had to apply to your own bank, your relationship manager, or apply online, and people just couldn't get hold of the banks. Websites were crashing, all sorts. This is due to the fact that a lot of banks have got staff abroad, and as a result, obviously they're also suffering with the coronavirus pandemic. So today, the government's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and they've given the banks until today to get their offerings sorted. There was 40 banks originally, the main high street banks and other providers. We're here. I mean, I can cover this off, and I probably will cover this off tomorrow on the webinar Q&A with the latest information of what's available. Some of the providers have certainly one's pulled out now, so things are changing. It is a changing landscape, and as I say, the government's given them till today. I know there's been quite a lot in the press, so I'll have more information for you on that scheme tomorrow and how you can apply and the importance around that. Business rates holiday, I'm sure a lot of you will be aware that if you have a small business rates relief, you'll get a 10k grant. There's also increased grants if you're in the retail, hospitality and leisure for premises. We are hearing that checks are now landing on that. So that's good news that cash is getting out there. And then obviously, quite recently, the government did launch the self-employed scheme, 3 years profits. We're still not sure exactly what definition they're going to use. There's a lot of, there isn't a lot of information on a lot of these schemes in massive detail, because obviously it's all happened so quickly. But basically, it's a similar line. If your profit's less than 50k, and you've submitted an 18-19 tax return and you continue to trade, the government will be contacting you, and you should be eligible for some money. However, it's not going to be paid till June. Okay, so next steps. We've set out, for you the mindsets that you need to have in these difficult times, and what you need to do to look after you, your team, and your customers. We've shared with you how you can improve your sales, profit margin, and cash flow. We've shared in general terms what's available from the government. Now it's essential that you decide what you're going to do. Clearly, doing nothing is not an option. Now it's time to put on the oxygen mask and get out there and make a plan and get through this crisis. Even if your decision is to kind of close your business down, although hopefully that's not going to be the case. Part of the planning is to surround yourselves with the experts, us, your bank, legal, HR advisors. We're all here to help, and do remember to stay above the line and have that be do have mentality, mindset. Focus on what you can do and not what you can't. So this on the next slide is the business continuity plan that I'll get out to you after this session. Okay, so basically it's a number of pages and there is a guide to help you put this together. So it's just a case of working through it, what we've already spoken about. For example, on the screen at the moment, the first bit is the well-being, looking at the resilience for you and your family, putting that first, what you're going to do, let's say, to help your family. That might be to do an online yoga course or a well-being app on your phone every day, and then obviously moving through it, you've got your personal budget, so looking at what costs you can or reduce if you haven't already. Looking, I can't obviously get it all on the screen here, but moving through, there's your COVID-19 prevention response policy. Update your team on the communications, continuity of work, working from home, some good stuff to get you thinking about that. Supporting and retaining your customers, your prevention and response policies there, in terms of trade. It works through all the aspects that we've gone through. So there's an awful lot that you can do, which will put you in a far stronger position. So in terms of how we can help you, well, as I've said, you can absolutely, and I'm going to send you this guide at the end. So the third option there is you can complete your business continuity plan yourself, for free, and we'll get that out to you. And then the options of working with us are ultimately you can have a go. Number two is do the plan, have a go at doing it yourself, and then book a meeting with us, and we'll jump on a Zoom call with you for an hour and a half and work through and make sure that we just finalise what you've already done and complete that business continuity plan. Now, normally, we're aware that everyone's kind of struggling, cash is difficult, so we have reduced, our fees down on all of these by 50% as our way of trying to help in this difficult time. And then finally, obviously, if you want us to, you can meet us online and we'll do the whole planning session together. The the advantage of this approach is that obviously we'll be able to make sure that you get everything that that you're entitled to in terms of the support that's available, and help you to complete that plan. Okay, so moving over, I'm conscious of time. Just wanted to kind of hand over to Debbie, and let's see if we've got any questions to answer from you.
We have got a wealth of them, and as you said, conscious of time with everyone. I am going to shout out the ones that have come through. We are collating them. I was just going to say, Kim, very valuable that everyone's given up their lunch hour today to be part of this. So I'm going to just shout out the ones that have come through. So if they are pertinent to you, don't worry, just put our hands up and say, yes, I want to know about the furloughing of staff, or what I can do as an owner managed business, and Kim and David and the team will come back to you with these, because I am just conscious we could start being here for a little longer, and it's great value, but I'm conscious that you may all want to be going off and building out your continuity plans. So just a couple of ones that have come through, Kim, and yeah. I'll let you see who they are so that you can come back to them. Can I furlough my staff, and can they still work? I think you addressed that in and around training, in the fact that you can furlough the staff, but they're not allowed to work, they have to train. Okay. And then the other one that came through is, what can I do as an owner manager of a business? And you'll see who's brought that one in, so I'll let you reply back to that one offline. And then we've got a few others in and around you doing the core values with them out of core, you doing the continuity plan, beg your pardon, out of core working hours. So I'll let you see all of those. Still keep popping your questions in, everybody, so that Kim's got them at the end of this. But what I will do now is, Kim, I'll just hand back to you now.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Okay, so apologies for kind of overrunning slightly. Thank you so much for making the time to attend the webinar, and I would really advise you to have a go at doing that business continuity plan. So hopefully you've got lots of ideas on that now. So before we go, I'd just like to share this quote with you. Anyone can lead when the plan is working. The best lead when the plan falls apart. Robin Sharma. So let's make sure you have a new and better plan to get you through these difficult times. Thanks very much. Thanks, Debbie, for helping me to moderate.